And I'd like to welcome you to the Greenham Trust Community Forum on behalf of all the Trust and all the people who are going to be speaking today. I think most of you know I'm Chris Bolton. You've heard me drone on many times over the course of the last couple of years in this sort of format. I really do hope that this is the last time we have to do a sort of virtual event like this, although they have proved to be fantastic. And I think to get well over 120 people signed up, we would struggle to do that in the real world anyway, but hopefully we will be able to re-enter the real world and meet people face to face in a big collective group before too long, as we continue to sort of claw our way out of COVID. So I think we've got a very exciting agenda today. Obviously, we're going to be talking about our 25th anniversary. So that it is our 25th anniversary year. If you've missed that, lots of things happening during the course of this year to celebrate that. And it's amazing, really, to think, if you look back at the 1997, 25 years ago, not in the wildest dreams of anybody involved with it then did they expect it to have been a success, the Greenham Trust to have been as successful as it has been. It is an amazing story and a unique one across the UK. So thank you for joining us to hear about that and about bringing you up to date where we are today. But I'd like to introduce the speakers as well, of course, today. And we've got a number of speakers from the team. We've got Marina Steadman, who's head of marketing. We've got Jill Owen, who's the grants manager, Louise James, who's head of grants, and also Julian May, who's head of collaborative funding. So all of them are going to be talking to you today. The main focus is going to be the 25 years of Greenham Trust, which is a presentation we've been giving now quite a lot around various parish councils and other groups. So if you are from a parish council or from another group where you'd like to see us face to face and come and present to you and talk about the trust and answer questions, very happy to do that. We're spreading that workload around the team, and we're delighted to come out and talk to various groups actually about the history of the trust. There's always an opportunity there to give a lot more in terms of Q&A sessions as well. We're then going to be talking about our 25th anniversary youth appeal fund. As you probably all know, we've run a number of appeal funds over the last couple of years, all of them very successful. And the Youth Appeal Fund is very special, I think, because we see it as been a legacy fund that continues for many years to come. And I think one of the other significant things today is a new initiative. As you know, we've done various things, the double match days and the like. And we've got the £25,000 in a day initiative. So that's going to be talked about by Jill, I think, later on this morning. So I think that's particularly exciting to something to really help drive sort of fundraising. And then Marina will finish off with other opportunities and things happening in our 25th anniversary year. So I won't drone on for too long. Again, welcome and to joining us this morning. Delighted to have you all on board. And Marina, if I can hand over to you so you can just run us through how we deal with the Q&A at the end of the session today.
Thank you, Chris. So there are a few people we know that are joining today's session who are new. So you're all on mute, but you'll see either at the top or the bottom of the screen, you've got a toolbar, and in that will be a Q&A button or Q&A marker. And if you click on that, what will pop up is a box. And in the box, you can just type your question in, and we will be notified that a question has been asked. And if it's an individual question, we'll try and answer it by typing the answer. And if it's a question about something that's applicable to everyone who's joined today, we'll answer it at the Q&A session at the end. But just to let you know, we will be sending out the recording of this event and all the slides after the session. So anyone who's joined or anyone who's registered and couldn't join will receive a recording, and it will also be on our website. So don't worry about having access to the slides or having to write everything down that we say. So now I'm going to hand over to Julian May and Louise James, who are going to run through the history of Greenham Trust. So I think Julian's starting. So over to you, Julian.
Thanks, Marina. Good morning, everyone. I'm going to give a quick potted history of Greenham Trust and its association with our location, our home, Greenham Common. The Greenham Common has long been associated with the military, and it started well over 200 years ago as a training ground during the Napoleonic Wars. Moving into the 20th century, it was requisitioned by the British government in 1942 as part of the Second World War effort, and played a pivotal role in 1945 in the preparations for Operation Overlord. the D-Day invasion of Normandy. There you can see in a picture the paratroopers from the American 101st Airborne Division, who took off every 11 seconds from the longest runway in Europe to form part of that D-Day invasion before parachuting into Normandy. After they received a rousing speech by General Eisenhower, the famous "Eyes of the World are upon us" speech. And as the Cold War grew and became more serious during the 1960s and 1970s, NATO chose Greenham Common as one of 2 strategic sites to house ground-launched cruise missiles. And an American airbase was formed at Greenham Common, and it became notorious as a site of international protests. Women from around the world converged on Greenham Common and formed peace camps to protest against the nuclear weapons there. Eventually, as time grew on, the INF Treaty, sorry, Marina, just 1 sec. Eventually, as time grew, the INF Treaty was signed in 1988, and eventually the base was decommissioned in 1992. On to the next slide, please. There was a big debate, a big public debate and consultation about what to do with the future of the site. And many stakeholders came together, led by local entrepreneur Sir Peter Michael, who wanted to do something better with the site. There was discussions about building a civic airport or a giant housing estate there. But Sir Peter and the other stakeholders thought there was a better solution, and they had 3 objectives. Firstly, they wanted to reinstate the site as common land, which is what it was for millennia, protected by an Act of Parliament. Secondly, they wanted to boost the local economy and create jobs. And thirdly, they wanted to give something back to the local community in the shape of charitable grants. And they started a discussion with the government and the MOD, which took 5 years, but eventually the government was persuaded to sell the site, the 1,000-acre former airbase. The trust borrowed the money, £7 million, a commercial market rate from Barclays Bank, and they bought the site. But they then gifted the majority of the land to the then Newbury District Council to reinstate as common land, and kept the 150-acre military buildings and turned that into a business park. The surplus income from tenants has been used as a charitable model to give out charitable grants to local charities. Next slide, please, Marina. This is the famous Gamma site, the ground launched cruise missiles alert and maintenance area. This was never part of the negotiations with the government. It wasn't sold as the part of the package. It was actually sold in a private auction to a private bidder, and it was actually inspected by the Russians right up until 2001 as part of the INF Treaty. But the Commons had many uses over the years, including a temporary home for Ugandan Asian refugees after the dictator Idi Amin it kicked them out of Uganda in 1972. It was also used as a training run for Richard Noble in his world land speed record in the famous thrust car. Next slide, please, Marina. But more famously, it is being more recently used as a film and television set. It was used by Jeremy Clarkson and the Top Gear team. It was part of the Fast and Furious film franchise, film location, and more famously as part of the Star Wars The Force Awakens. And last year it was used as a video set for the UK's Eurovision Song Contest entry, which unfortunately didn't score any points. It's still owned by the council, and it's owned by Berkshire, Buckinghamshire and Oxfordshire Wildlife Trust, and it's jointly managed by the Cookham and Greenham Commons Commission. I'll now pass on to my colleague Louise, who's going to bring you up to speed about what we do on the business park now and how Greenham Trust works.
Thanks, Julian, that's great. So yes, for those of you on the call who perhaps haven't visited us, we're based at Greenham Business Park, which is also the source of our support that we're able to gift out, and we'll talk about that in a bit. So Greenham Business Park has around 150 tenants, It's a mix of light, industrial, distribution, accountancy, many sole traders in our enterprise centre, lots of diverse businesses, from Land Rover Jaguar that you can see as you pass, to Total Rail, but also West Berkshire Food Bank are there, Young People and Children First are based there, so a real mix. Some of the buildings on the site have been refurbished and reused since Cold War days. Some buildings have had to be demolished with new buildings built. We since day one, all of the way that we've been set up is to derive income from our rents, which are then reinvested back into the park to improve it, but then profits go out into the community. For those who haven't been to visit, please come and see us. We are based over on one side of the park, and we meet very often with people who come to see us at the base, which is a special dedicated building really for the arts and celebrating our continued support of the arts. We operate the base in partnership with the Corn Exchange, and it has resident artist studios and workshops, and offers a whole gallery space where we have special exhibitions, including wildlife photographer of the year. We've had Hockney there, Quentin Blake. There's a current exhibition about decoding Braille. So some really fascinating local art exhibitions, and an honesty cafe. So that's a bonus as well. Nice tea and cake. Really, the base is symbolic of our vision that business parks can be and can do much more for local communities than they regularly do across the country. So that's the base. Next slide, please. Just a little bit about our giving. Really, what characterises Greenham Trust is that we support a whole range of causes across the place where we're based. So we are a place-based funder. We support West Berkshire and North Hampshire specifically for Greenham Trust giving. We also operate a restricted fund with the Peter Baker Foundation, which takes us a bit further afield. And some of you on the call today are from areas we fund in a 20-mile radius around Newbury. But really the point is that we do consider all good causes, provided there's a community benefit, and obviously subject to any due diligence, reporting, and other things as you'd expect from any grant making trust. Next slide, please. So just to recap a bit where Greenham Trust's money comes from, because that is a question we get. So as mentioned, the business park and the assets that we hold, mainly on the park, but also some properties off-site and in Newbury, we have tenants who pay rent, and from that rent, we're able to, after reinvesting back into the improvement of the buildings and maintenance, we're able to distribute that profit out into the community. And that currently amounts to around £3 to £4 million a year. If you want to know, if you love forensic accounting, you're very welcome to look at our full accounts, which are on the Charity Commission website. Like many of you, we are also monitored by the Charity Commission. Next slide, please. So how we give. Really, one of the key features of how we give is we offer match funding, and there's generally that's £1 for £1. So if you raise £1 for your project, we will match it up to a certain limit. The reason we do that is to really encourage public support of your projects, corporate support of your projects, and to try and build momentum in your own local community about the work you're trying to do. So we find that's a very effective way of us offering support. Pretty much across the board, we'll offer match funding to projects in our area that we can. Where there are beneficiaries in our area, but your project is, where your charity is in the 20-mile radius, we will offer proportionate match funding. For those who don't know about our match funding, we are going to cover a bit more about that shortly. We also offer major grants. These tend to also be facilitated by match funding, but in major grants, we focus more on capital builds and equipment. So things like youth centres, sports facilities, playgrounds, also recently the Rosemary appeal at West Berks Hospital. So those tend to be higher amounts agreed directly by our Board of Trustees. Funnily enough, I was at Chadleworth Village Hall last night. One of the major schemes that we ran a few years ago now was to support all village halls across our area, because we see them as a real linchpin of community life, especially in a predominantly rural area like we are. We also do special appeals, and I'll come back to that in a bit more detail. Collaborative funding, we're honoured to have Julian May on the call today. Really, that's a bit like match funding, but rather than public and corporate donations, we're trying to work with other funders to bring their assets and grants to be able to support projects and see them to fruition more quickly. So we work using our giving platform, the Good Exchange. We work with the likes of Englefield, Sovereign, Miss Lawrence Trust, Cider Foundation, lots of the town councils as well, to try and really encourage their grants to also support your work. And then our small grants, £30,000 does not sound like a small grant, does it? But our distribution committee, which meets quarterly, can award up to £30,000 in our ongoing quarterly schemes, which you'll often see advertised on our website and on our social media. On the whole, our average grant size from those schemes is nearer £2,500, to give an idea of scale, but there is opportunity for the distribution committee to give up to 30. Next slide, please. I wanted to just talk a bit about our appeals. So in 2020, when the wonderful coronavirus pandemic hit us, the Trust acted quickly and set up a coronavirus emergency relief fund. And this was really to try and support the organisations that needed extra help to reach vulnerable people and vulnerable groups at the height of the pandemic. So we did an appeal, and we were able to offer match funding and raise just under £500,000 in the end. And we've used that money to support over 100 or nearly 100 local charities and groups. Many of you are on the call today. So an example might be Fairclose Centre. We helped them establish a Meals on Wheels service to get out into the community. We helped West Berkshire Food Bank with some emergency support, and so on. So there's a whole list on our website if you wanted to see a bit more about that. We also, during coronavirus, the joys of homeschool, for those who might remember, when the schools shut at the beginning of 2021, we found out quite quickly that there were many families struggling to access laptops and remote learning devices for their children. Some families may have had one device, but then they also had adults working from home, or siblings trying to share, or simply trying to use a mobile phone. Just really a lack of available support. There was a national scheme to provide laptops, but a working example is Stockcross Primary applied to that scheme, and for the 26 pupils on free school meals at their school, and to get help, and they were allocated no laptops, 0, and then they appealed and they were issued 1. So this is where the Trust was able to step in and say, well, we need to sort something out here. Let's work together. So we set up a fund, amazingly raised nearly £300,000 in about a month. And we were able to work with the schools, and we were able to work with the West Berkshire Council to verify requests for support. And this ended up with us being able to issue laptops to the 36 primary schools and secondary schools to issue on to their pupils for use. One of the long-term benefits of that, because normally we would not be able to support statutory needs, or what we think of statutory obligations. But one benefit is that a lot of these schools now have some excellent equipment for longer term use as well. And who knows what's happening. I think we're coming out, but we said this last year, but I think we're coming out of the pandemic now. That leads on to our Surviving to Thriving Fund, which is a joint initiative with West Berkshire Council. And that is a fund that's still open to applications. And I do encourage you to take a look in case you have any projects you think that we could support through this fund. It is specific to West Berkshire because of the nature of the way the fund's been set up with the local council. But that is really to try and support mental health needs in the wake of the pandemic, where vulnerable groups have been particularly affected and services have been particularly affected. Okay. Next slide, please, Marina. That brings us neatly onto our 25th anniversary youth appeal. Next slide again, please. So basically, this is, as Chris mentioned at the beginning, this is our new initiative. We are aiming to raise a whole £500,000 using £250,000 match funding that we are committing. And what we will do with that is distribute it to a wide range of causes, reaching young people and children aged 11 to 25. We've always supported young people's causes, and what we're trying to do with this particular appeal is draw attention to the needs of young people, which we feel have been sidelined, particularly in the last 2-3 years. But actually, there's been an underinvestment in youth work generally for quite some time. And our friends at Berkshire Youth, who we're aligning with on this particular appeal, will give countless examples of how the funding environment and the support environment has been changing. So we want to help in that space, and also through our regular grant making processes and through our expert committee who we have in place, who are very connected to the local community to support this area of need. So you can find out more about the youth appeal at a dedicated web link, which is there on the screen. And then also, please, as you're all working, or those of you working with young people aged 11 to 25, do take a look in case you would like to apply for funding. I think that's me. I'm going to pass to Marina just to go a little bit more into what match funding is, especially for those who don't know it. Thank you.
Thank you, Louise. We did have a couple of people asking us to quickly explain the concept of match funding in a bit more detail. So we've put a couple of slides on. So as Louise said, match funding is offered by funders, typically Greenham Trust, and the aim is to incentivise donors and fundraisers to raise money for their favourite causes. So in the example in the diagram here, Greenham Trust has offered a £5,000 trust top-up match fund to charity A for their fundraising project via the Good Exchange. That means that every pound donated to that project, up to an amount of £5,000 via the Good Exchange, will be matched by Greenham Trust £1 for £1. And the matching happens as the money is raised. So if you raise £1,000, for example, you would receive £1,000 of match funding. So if you raise £5,000, the charity will receive £10,000 and, if eligible, up to 25% on top of that on the amount that's been donated or raised in gift aid. So you could raise a total of £10,000 plus £1,250 from your £5,000 of fundraising and donations. Now, just to show you, if you're new to the Good Exchange platform, what that will look like from a project point of view. So I've got an example here of a Young People and Children First project, and you can see the logo in the bottom right-hand corner. So any project on the Browse Your Project screen that has this match funding logo will have match funding available. So one thing to do is tell your donors and supporters to look out for the match funding symbol on any live projects that you have. Then when they go into your project, if they want to give a donation, you can see here on this table that it shows exactly how much match funding has been offered, but also how much is available. So you can see here with the Young People and Children First example, Greenham Trust had offered £5,000 of match funding. £3,460 has been given in donations, which leaves £1,540 still to be matched. So any donation or fundraising activity that your supporters do that raises up to £1,540 would be doubled by Greenham Trust. So you can use this information anytime on your projects to keep your supporters up to date with how much match funding you've got. And also remember that match funding offers are usually time limited. I think in Greenham Trust case, it's 6 months. So remember, use your match funding or you risk losing it and then your money won't be doubled. But now I'm going to hand over to Jill, who's going to talk about our exciting new match funding initiative, our 25th anniversary 25k in a day. So over to you, Jill.
Thank you, Marina. Good morning, everybody. Yes, so I'm delighted to be able to tell you today more about our 25k a day event coming up this year. So next slide, please. Right, so yes, so as part of our 25th anniversary celebration, we're delighted to be able to offer 5 charitable organisations the opportunity to take part in our 25k in a day events. So on these days, Greenham Trust will be offering 5-to-1 matched funding. So for up to £5,000 raised in donations and fundraising by yourselves, we will match it up to £25,000. We plan to hold 5 days, which will be in May, July, September, October and November. And within reason, you'll be able to choose your date within that month. Obviously, it needs to work for both of us. And on each of these days, one single charitable organisation will be able to raise over £31,250. This would be made up of £5,000 through your own fundraising and donations, £25,000 in matched funding, and up to £1,250 in gift aid if eligible. But your fundraising doesn't have to stop there, because you can continue to raise more than £5,000 through your fundraising, but it just won't get it matched after beyond that by Greenham Trust. Okay, so next one. So the main terms and conditions for this are that one charitable project will be selected for each day. You need to have a new application with a minimum project value of £31,250. The project needs to be wholly within Greenham Trust's area of operation, which is West Berkshire and North Hampshire. But if you're an organisation covering a wider area, maybe you cover, like, for instance, the whole of Berkshire, you may still be eligible if your project is specifically for residents of West Berkshire and North Hampshire. And the project can be for any charitable purpose, core costs, revenue projects, or capital projects. Next one. So how to apply? There are 3 steps to our application process. First, you need to create a new project on the Good Exchange. Then you need to complete a fundraising plans form. This is available on our website. And in here, you need to give full details of all your fundraising activities that you plan to raise your £5,000 in the one day. And then you send an email to events@greenhamtrust.com with the fundraising plans form, asking for your application to be considered. We're going to have 2 application deadlines: Friday the 25th of March for the May and July dates, and Friday the 15th of July for the September, October and November dates. And we anticipate being able to let you know within 2 weeks of the deadline whether or not your application has been successful. Full terms and conditions and further details are on our website at greenhamtrust.com/25k in a day. Next slide. So why 25k in a day? Well, this is a proven method. In 2020 and 2021, we held 3 double match days. And on each of these days, we offered double match funding of up to £10,000 against £5,000 in donations and fundraising. The table below gives the key statistics from these events. Out of the 25 projects, 21 applicants reached their target of £5,000 in donations, and all received over the £10,000 match funding available from Greenham Trust. Thank you, and on to the next. So here are some examples of successful fundraising activities: sponsored activities, fundraising events, appeals to regular supporters mailing lists, emotive video appeal. And what is Greenham Trust looking for? We are looking for creative and innovative fundraising ideas that are likely to attract interest, active social media campaign. We want applicants who are confident in reaching their 5k fundraising target, and if possible, involving the wider community. So thank you for listening. And if you have any questions, please pop them in the box and we'll answer them shortly. And now I'll hand you over to Louise.
Thank you. I just wanted to run through, thanks Jill. I think that's an amazing opportunity. I really hope everyone applies on the call. I just wanted to run through a few other ways you can get involved with us during our 25th anniversary year. Please save the date for Saturday, the 25th of June. We are doing a bit of a Newbury takeover, and we're going to have a Greenham Trust fundraising day in Newbury. We're going to have a presence there at the bandstand and also in Northbrook Street, but we're also working excitingly in partnership with 101 Arts, who are part of Corn Exchange, on an outdoor art exhibition on the same day. So please come along and support that event. The funds that we raise on that day will go to our youth appeal, which we will then, of course, match from our commitment. The other way you can be involved, if you haven't already, we've had 65 parish councils, charities and organisations take up this opportunity already. We've committed to plant 25,000 trees over the next few planting seasons, and we've already distributed 2,500 trees for planting as part of the Queen's Green Canopy Platinum Jubilee celebrations. So do take a look at that website if that's something that would interest you. Please do help share the news of our appeal. We do recognise that this takes us into the realms of fundraising more, as well as being a grant maker. But rest assured, for those working in the youth sector, we will absolutely use this funding to support the youth sector in turn. And in fact, through our collaborative funding and through the match giving, make a really significant investment really in the youth sector over time. So we do really want everyone on the call to please help share the news of our appeal with your communities and supporters as well. As part of our year ahead, we are also going to be inviting schools to take part in a fundraising challenge for us. This is something we want to invite primary and secondary schools to do, the mainstream sector and also independent schools. And we'll be setting some targets and encouraging schools, communities to get behind our fundraising challenge. All of this information can be found at greenhamtrust.com/25 years. Can I also add that we will be working with the Volunteer Centre West Berkshire on two particular things during this year. We have a strategic alliance in place with the Volunteer Centre, and they are very kindly helping us to coordinate some volunteer efforts for the 25th of June event. But also we'll be present along with many of you on the volunteer recruitment fair on Saturday morning, this 5th of February. So if that's of interest, please do sign up, and you can see the link on their website. I think that's everything on the 25th. Thank you.
Yes, so thank you, Louise. So you'll have seen quite a lot of links on the slides that have been presented. So we've tried to put them all on this one table. So there are the links to the 25th anniversary website and and links to the Greenham Trust current grant funding opportunities. You can see the 25k in a day link there. And if you are interested in applying or planning to apply for the 25k in a day, and you're looking for fundraising ideas, on the Good Exchange website, there are lots of recordings of previous community forums that we've held with ideas and case studies and tips on fundraising activities. So have a look there. If you're a new applicant to the Good Exchange, there's a link there on how to get started to apply, and a link to the user guide, and also a link to all the help and support that we have on the Good Exchange. So now I'm going to hand over back to Chris for the questions and answers. So has anyone got any questions? Do you want me to read them out, Chris, or are you going to?
Indeed, I'm happy to do that. Yeah, thank you very much for that. Or to all our speakers, to Louise, Jill, Marina and Julian. I think we've got a couple of questions at the moment. The first one is from Guy Hughes, who's Berkshire Maestros. So regarding the youth appeal, can we apply for an event taking place in February half term, or is it too soon? Louise, I think you were keen to answer that one.
I'm very keen to answer that one. Thank you. The answer is we continue our giving to all sorts of projects through our regular small grants meetings. So please do apply, Di, whether or not you are successful through the youth appeal, or whether we are able to support you with a community grant or other ways of support, depends on what's available at that time. We are likely to start issuing youth appeal funding from April onwards, but of course we have to do some fundraising first as well. But what I suggest is you put your application up online as soon as possible, because obviously February half term is what, 2 weeks away, 3 weeks away, and we will see what, if anything, we can apply to that. Even if Greenham Trust can't assist, by having your project up on the Good Exchange, other funders may see it as well and decide to support you, but also you can share the link with your community and your donors to make direct donations to your work.
Thank you, Louise. The next question I've got here is from Anne Bajorek. Please, can you clarify the Greenham Trust area of giving? I realise the 25k in a day is restricted to West Berkshire and North Hampshire, but do your other grant giving activities reach beyond those areas? We work across Oxfordshire, particularly in Didcot, Abingdon and Oxford. Louise, is that one for you as well, I think?
Yes, that's fine. So currently we have a restricted fund which we manage called Peter Baker Foundation. And that does extend out to the areas you're talking about and the areas you cover. We have just had the winter round for that particular scheme, but we do have another round in the summer. So what I suggest is you apply on the Good Exchange, and not only will Peter Baker Foundation systems be able to pick up your project to look at it, but also again other funders using that go beyond Greenham Trust's area. So that includes Englefield, Sovereign, Miss Lawrence Trust. There are various that may also see your project and opt to support it.
Great, thank you. So Di Hughes also says thank you very much for the answer. We are planning a great event with Vox Thrive and Berkshire Youth, which is good to hear. On to the next question from Lorna McArdle. If you already have a matched funding in place, can we also apply for the 25-year as well? So I think she means the 25k in a day.
I'll take that one.
Okay, yep. Thank you.
Okay, so yes, you can, as long as it's a new project. So it would have to be a new application onto the Good Exchange. So if you have a match funding offer on an existing project, then yes, you can put in a new application, but it needs to be for a different project, if that makes sense. Okay,
that does make sense. Thank you very much, Jill. And then a question from Hannah Yeomans. I presume with the 5k in a day, it is donations received, I think you mean 25k in a day, it's the donations received on that day and does not include pledges. Is that right? So Jill, over to you on that one.
Yes, that's right. It has to be donations paid into the Good Exchange online on that day. That's all covered in the detailed terms and conditions which are available on the website. But yes, it doesn't include pledges. So.
Great, thank you, Jill. So the next one is Namisha Patel. And Namisha has said, would the Youth Appeal be able to support ongoing projects which do not receive statutory funding? Louise, do you want to cover that one?
Yes, thank you. So in theory, yes, that would depend on the applicant, the project, and how it will help young people. So yeah, I mean, this is, as an independent trust, this is something we can specialise in, is supporting where statutory funding isn't eligible or doesn't go far enough, for example. So for example, in the case of schools and PTAs, where PTAs put on an application, we are of the understanding then that independent charity is fundraising on behalf of the school with the school's knowledge for things that the school itself can't fund. So similarly with hospital appeals, that sort of thing. So the short answer is yes, but the longer answer is it depends on your project and what you're looking for in detail.
Okay, thank you, Louise. Got another question here from Mike McKenzie. For a community grant application, is this restricted to capital projects only, please? I'll answer that one, Mike. No, it's not. You can have capital or revenue-based project for community grants. The only limit in effect really is a £30,000 limit for community grants. But the sweet spot really of community grants tends to be about £2,500 to £3,000, just as an indication. Got another question here for the panel from Grace Green. If you aren't successful in the first March round of the 25k in a day, can you still be selected for the July round? Jill, I think over to you for that one.
Yes, you can. So when you put in the when you complete the fundraising forms, it asks you which months you wish to be considered for. So if you put all the months in there that you're available, then if you're not successful in the March round, then it could still be considered for the July round. And what we're also thinking of doing, but obviously we would talk to the applicants about it, is if you weren't successful in March and you wanted to be considered in July, we could revert your project on the Good Exchange to draft so that it didn't receive any funding in the interim. So, yeah.
That's a good point. I've got another question, I think, in a similar vein, actually. I'm reading these live, actually. From Jeremy Willis. What happens if the application for the 25k in a day are all on one of the dates rather than an equal spread across all the dates? So I don't quite understand that question, actually, Jeremy. Perhaps you could just clarify that one.
He means if everybody applies for July and nobody applies for November.
Oh, I see. Yeah, you might mean that. Yeah.
Then what would we do?
Well, we would still just stick with our one per month, but I think we would contact the applicants in that instance and ask them if they wish to be considered for any of the other months.
Yeah, because you could spread it across, of course. Yeah. So, yeah. Jeremy, if that's what you meant, then I hope you've got the answer to that one as well. And that takes us to all the questions I have here online.
I think there's another one, Chris.
Another one?
Yes.
It's one. So
here we go. Sorry, they are coming in. Sorry, just trying to keep up with the screen. I'm sorry if there's a bit of background noise. I'm actually at the base, actually, that Louise was promoting so well. There's clearly a bit of a party going on amongst the resident artist outside of the door. So I apologise for any sort of background noise you're picking up from me. The next question I've got from Sarah McGill, actually, here. So 5 projects will be chosen for each of the days.
No, it's one project
it's one
for each of the days. So it'll be 5 projects in total across the year.
Great, thanks, Jill. And Jeremy, we got your question right. So yes, thank you. Thank you very much.
There are a few questions hiding in the chat as well, if I may share them. So one, Jeremy asked his question, but that's okay. That's been answered. Christopher Utting asks, for Lorraine at the Friends of Berkshire. Oh no, hang on, sorry, that's something else. Josie Reed is asking, for the 25k in a day, core costs, revenue costs, projects and capital costs are covered. Could one project cover a bit of each? So could you have a mix?
Yes, you could.
Okay, and Ian Bowles.
Ian
goes, Ian's asking, is there a timing issue for matching grants? So if a county councillor grant is provided now for an improvement or an activity, but the Good Exchange or Trust grant is not set up, would the county grant miss out on matching? So I can answer that, Ian. Basically, yes, our matched funding offers always have a start point and an end point. And the system is set up so that live donations and grants applied to the project are matched through the offer that's made. So if you're worried about whether a grant would come online at the right time with a live offer, you can contact us and be in touch. But you can also see on the platform, and you can see on your funding offers the dates where your match funding is live. One thing to note that we found out, particularly at the moment, is it says on a funding offer, it will say that the match funding offer ends, for example, on the 15th of March. Actually, it ends at 11:59 on the 14th of March and is invalid from the 15th. So don't try and make a donation on the actual 15th of March. It's already ended at midnight of that day. Anyway, that's a detail. Mostly you are all using up your match funding well before the expiry date. But yeah, so that's match funding.
Okay, thanks, Louise. I've got a question here from Sarah Snow. If we are selling raffle tickets, can we ask people to pay on that day, and will that be considered as part of the contribution? I think that's referenced the 25k in a day, Jill, if you can answer that one for me.
Right, okay, so yes, there's sort of 2 options for the raffle tickets. You could ask them to, if you buy raffle tickets on the day and they pay for them by credit card, donating to the project on the Good Exchange on that day. Or alternatively, you could sell them yourselves, say maybe in the few days prior to the event and on the day of the event, and then somebody from your organisation would need to pay those funds in as a fundraising event by credit card. So if, for instance, yes, you sold your raffle tickets up until 5 o'clock, and then somebody from your organisation counts up the money, they say, right, we've got £300 here. So they would need to go online and make a donation by credit card of £300, and in the comments box put £300 from raffle ticket sales.
Great, thanks. Well explained, Jill.
Things like that, it's we will be working with the applicants. Once the applicants have been selected, we'll probably set up some online Zoom meetings or meeting in person to go through all fine details like this to help you and guide you along the way.
Great, thank you. I've got another one here from Jeremy Willis, just asking for clarification on the last point. Can one enter all 5 days at 1k per day, Jill?
No, sorry. It's going to be one applicant per day that we want to raise 5k on that day. You can enter on the form, you can say that you wish to be considered for all 5 months, but the reality is that we will be picking 5 different applicants, one for each of the 5 months.
Yeah,
yep.
That's correct. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting, actually, just as a sort of comment from me, really, because on the double match days, I mean, it's fair to say we weren't always overwhelmed with the number of applicants. But hopefully this one, is very different. It's quite exciting. It's a lot of money to raise in a day, is matching as part of the 25th anniversary promotions. So hopefully we will attract, a lot of people, a lot of organisations who've got projects. Okay, I'm devoid of questions. I don't think there's anything in the chat either, is there? Unless anybody, Louise, you can see. I can't see chat and Q&A at the same time, unfortunately. I don't have enough screens.
No, there's just a thank you, Chris.
There is a thank you from Sarah Snow as well. Yeah, thank you, Sarah. Okay. Well, I think in that case, as we've sort of run short of questions, it remains for me to say thank you again to all of our speakers this morning. It takes quite a bit of effort to put these things together, as you will, I'm sure, appreciate. Thank you very much for those of you who joined us. Delighted that we had you all on board this morning. As I said at the outset, I really do hope we don't have to resort to Zoom for much longer. I must admit I've got out of practice from it now, from sort of 5 or 6 Zoom calls a day to unlucky if I do one a week now. So hopefully we can see you all in person. As I said at the outset, also, if you do represent a group, that could be a charity, a voluntary, any kind of group, or a parish or town council, me or other members of the team here will be delighted to come along and talk to you about what the Trust are doing in our 25th anniversary year, and about the history as well. There seems to be quite a demand for that, certainly. I was at Newbury Town Council on Monday evening. It was quite a good session, quite a brief presentation, but lots of questions and answers. So it's amazing. After 25 years, there were still lots and lots of people out there who don't know much about what we do. And also, as Louise said in her bit as well, right early on, do come and see us here. Always happy to meet people, talk about projects, talk about challenges and issues you have, and meet at the base as well, where I'm sitting today. So thanks again to the speakers. Thanks very much to all of you for joining us. And we hope to see you in person next time.